Alright, what is up guys? Welcome back to another video. It's going to be a Splatoon 3 updated tier list for the 1.2.0 patch. And probably the last tier list we get before the major update here at the end of November, start of December. I wanted to do an updated tier list because the last one I did was, I think, around about the start of September and the launch of Splatoon 3. A lot of stuff has changed, and a lot of the weapons are kind of falling into where they're supposed to actually be now. A lot of people are getting better at the game. New players are starting to learn how to play the game, and ranked is kind of settling out to where like everybody's getting into their specific ranks now. So you just don't have like random people in, like your lower tier games and vice versa. So if you guys like these tier list videos, leave a like, subscribe, share the video. I'd really appreciate it. And if these videos keep on doing really well, I'll keep on bringing you guys these tier list videos. I do plan on doing one for the major update, like I said, at the end of November, start of December, at the end of the Season 1. So when we get a bunch of major like balance changes. As for the 1.2.0 patch, we got a few alt changes, and we got a slight nerf that didn't really even matter to Fizzy Bomb. And then a bunch of bug fixes to the Ultra Stamp, which... the Ultra Stamp's still a pretty bad alt. It's pretty bad special, but like it's a little bit better. It's not as bad, but it's still really bad. And we got some point changes to the Sloshing Machine, the Reflux 450, and then the Flingser Roller, so which didn't really matter at all. None of those weapons with the plus 10 extra alt charge needed to get a special were nerfed at all. So keep in mind, before I get into this, I actually changed this list as well. If you guys missed my last tier list video, I'll link at the end of this video. But I actually added an F tier, and I got rid of, I think I added a C tier. I think instead of it, I think I had F tier, and I think I added a C tier on this list. Or there's one more tier than this last list, because I need to break this down a little bit more efficiently this time. Since we finally got like specific tiers for a lot of weapons where they're falling for right now. So keep in mind too, this is going to be mainly for your like higher play. I'm going to try to talk about the weapons in your lower tier games, but like mainly like S tier and above, like your higher tier, like best tier play of game, mainly for this list. Maybe at the start of this, when this next patch drops, I'll do like a more like average tier list for like all your average players combined, and like your average ranks, like your, I don't know, B to A tier all the way up to S tier, and mainly that type of consideration. But for this, it's going to be your higher tiers of games. I'm going to try to explain the weapons in your higher tiers and your lower tiers, how they're both good and bad in each tier and level of play. So, right into this, we're going to start out Rapid Blaster. I think Rapid Blaster right now is probably B tier. There's just no reason to really play it. Like, it's good on decent maps. Also, another thing I forgot to say, before I get into this, there's going to be consideration of all the game modes: Rainmaker, Clams, Zones, and Tower Control all into one for this list. So I'm not going to be like prioritizing specific weapons just for a certain game mode. It's going to be overall in every mode, so keep that in mind as well. Rapid's B tier. I think the one thing Rapid lacks is it subs really bad. Ink Mine doesn't do anything for this weapon. It doesn't do anything. Triple Ink Strike is okay, but like Ink Mine is just useless. You have pretty much a useless sub on a blaster. Otherwise, apart from that, it can be okay. It depends on the map you're playing it on. But apart from that, it's kind of B tier. I think Rapid Pro is really good. I think one of the best blasters in the game as like a support or like backline blaster. It has Ink Vac and Toxic Mist, really good combo. Just really consistent. You're seeing it played a lot right now in your like higher tiers of play. Really, really solid. Clash Blaster, one of my favorite weapons in the game. F tier though. The problem with this weapon is that it is fucking garbage and hits an absolute drop off once you land into S or above tier, or like up to S+. I was using the absolute shit out of this weapon and playing this weapon as much as possible in my like mid to lower tier games, from like B all the way up to A+, around there, like as much as possible, along with Blaster, which is the two things I've been playing the most. And games are a lot more easier to play in those types of ranks. Once I hit S tier with this weapon, I've just fucking been struggling. it is really, really difficult to play, and you are just better off playing any other blaster in the game, let alone any other weapon, pretty much. I think the real problem with this weapon, it has a really good kit. The Splat Bomb and the Trizooka is really good on this weapon. It might be the best kit this weapon has had in its entirety of existing. But the weapon, the real problem with the weapon is it takes too long to kill, and it paints so poorly. The paint on this weapon sucks. It cannot paint for shit, and if somebody dives on you and you can't at least land one direct on them, especially in your higher tier games, they just win every 1v1 versus you. Unlike your middle to like lower tier games where you're playing against players that don't really know how to position, you can kind of get more shots off them on them and kind of catch them off guard. In your higher tier games, S tier and above, that's not working and you're just throwing pretty much. You have to have a specific team built around this if you want to make this weapon work in your higher tier games. If you're looking for like a pub stomp weapon though, like S and below, if you want a really good pub stomp weapon that can just carry games, the Clash Blaster is still good for that. It's just really awful in your higher tier games, and I've been struggling with it. I've tried to make it work ever since I made it to S plus and above, or S tier and above, and I've just been not working at all. No matter what like gear build I try or what I try to do with it, I just can't make it work, and I'm just better off playing anything else, it seems like, every single time. I'm asking myself, why am I playing Clash Blaster when I can be playing Blaster or like any other weapon I like playing, and it can probably do way better. It's just not good in your higher tier games. That's the real problem with it. I think that if they want to buff this weapon going into December with this next patch, they need to give it some extra ink efficiency, or like, I don't know what kit they would give the next variant, but like as for like the main weapon itself, they may need to make it paint a little bit better. Give it a painting buff. I think that's what it really needs, or like a slight damage buff. I'm not sure though. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Range Blaster, I think is A tier. Probably the blast you're going to be seeing the most in your games. I think it's the most consistent blaster in the game, apart from the Rapid Pro. Really solid kit. I don't think there's any kit you'd want more than what it has right now, apart from like a Burst Bomb or like a Splat Bomb. Really solid. And if you know how to play it, you can do really good. Blaster, as much as I like Blaster, like I don't think it's as good as it really was. I think it's actually pretty bad right now. It's not, I wouldn't say it's like dog shit bad. Like, you can still play it, and if you know what you're doing, you can get away with it, but, like, compared to how good it was in Splatoon 2, I feel like it's just completely fallen off. And I think the main reason with that is the kit. The Big Bubbler, don't get me wrong, Big Bubbler is great, but, like, I feel like it just doesn't fit on this weapon. The weapon really wants more of, like, an aggressive type special, and Big Bubbler, it doesn't really get much use out of. It's mainly as, like, a defensive or, like, hold down an area type special for this weapon. And you don't really get much value out of it, per se, like an Inkjet or like a Trizooka or like anything else that they could have put on this weapon. Even like, I would have even rather had like Killer Whale. Like, I think Killer Whale on the blaster would have been crazy good. I'm actually hoping they put Killer Whale on the next blaster for like the custom blaster. Either they give it back Inkjet or they give it Killer Whale. I think that would be incredibly cool. Autobomb's pretty good though. I think Autobomb as a sub on this weapon is really good. It just lacks a really good special, and that's what really holding it back for this game so far. And as people are finding, and at least me playing it more and more since the last tier list is really finding out, unfortunately. Luna Blaster C tier. It's just not, it lacks range. The problem with this weapon is it lacks range. It has the one-shot potential, but it just gets shit on by a lot of the other weapons that just can kill way faster or have way more mobility than it. It kind of struggles to paint, and that's one of the real problems with it as well. It's really harsh on ink efficiency. It takes a shit ton of ink. You got to run a kit that can actually, and a gear build that can actually supply it with enough ink, because it's really harsh on ink, and then it doesn't really paint that well. Its kit is pretty good, but like, it just lacks paint, and that's the real thing that's holding it back. And then if you're wanting to run a blaster and that don't paint really good anyways, what reason are you going to run the Luna Blaster over like the regular blaster or even like Range Blaster? They don't paint really nearly as good as either, but like at least you have slightly more range, which gives you a huge advantage over like the regular Luna Blaster. That's the real problem with it right now. The brushes I think are okay. They're more mode dependent. You're going to see them more in your Clan Blitz games, but apart from that, I don't think you're going to see them that much. More of like weapons you're going to see in your middle tier games. You don't really see brushes being played at all in your higher tier games, like I said, apart from like Clan Blitz once in a while. That's the real problem with like your higher tier games. They can be good in your lower tiers though. They still have potential. They're not bad by any means. They're just kind of underplayed. The GooTuber C tier, I think it has potential, but it's just not being played at all. There's just no reason to play it right now. You're not seeing it played. I don't think I've even seen a GooTuber once in my ranked games over the last couple weeks. Like, I don't even remember the last time I seen a GooTuber, and if I did, I don't even know if it did good. If I happen to remember if I did have one. Bamboozler, it's on F tier, it's garbage. You know, I think the one thing they need to do with the Bamboozler, this is such a cool weapon, it really is. It might be one of my favorite weapons to play, at least like fun-wise, in this game right now. But it's just really bad. They need to bring it back so you can one-shot people with main power-up. They took away main power-up for this weapon in Splatoon 2 over to this game, and it's been an absolute shell of its former self. I think that's the real problem with the weapon. Make it so that you can actually one-shot with this weapon. Make it so you can one-shot, or even like 90 damage for a full charge shot instead of 85. That would be a huge change. I don't know. I think that's the real thing that's lacking right now. I think the main weapon itself is lacking. Its kit's okay. Like, you can get along with its kit, but I think the main weapon itself is really lacking damage. It needed main power-up, and ever since it never got main power-up and that got removed from the game, it's been struggling, and it's garbage. No reason to play it in ranked at all unless you want to try to have fun and challenge yourself. Then you can maybe make it work if you're crazy good at it. But apart from that, I wouldn't touch it at all. E-leaders. I think for backline weapons, I'm putting them all at S. Same with the splatter shots, or the other chargers. Splat chargers and E-leaders are great. They're some of the best backline weapons in the game. We might as well get the other backline weapon in the game. That's probably the best one as well out of the way and put that S tier. You might as well put that up in the S tier, the Explosure as well. Pick any, if you want one of the best backlines in the game, these are the three that are being played in your higher tier games and that are being played the most right now. They're almost in every single game, if not every other game. One of these weapons, usually. The Explosure's crazy right now, really solid. It's probably going to end up getting nerfed. Splat Charger, really good. Splat Bomb, Ink Vac, I think it has. Incredibly good. E-Leader, especially on a lot of the maps being played right now, is really difficult to play into. You run something with like Respawn Punisher and like you just sit and hold a couple like 3 or 4 specific angles on most of the maps, and it's just almost impossible for people to get past you, especially with the lack of flank routes on a lot of these maps as well. In certain modes, it's really difficult to kill you, especially with how much range you have. I think the E-Leader is probably the best it's ever been. At least in this game so far. I don't know about Splatoon 2, but like at least so far, I think it's one of the best, if not the best backline in the game. It really is. I think, at least me personally, I think the E-Leader is the best one in the game right now. Some people will say the Explosure, like the Splat Charger, but I think the best one right now is the E-Leader, 100%. Squilfer, C tier, it's not being played at all. Unless you're an absolute god with this weapon, like you're not going to be playing it at all and you're just better off playing anything else. What reason is there to play the classic Squilfer over any of the other chargers that can just have better range and do their job 10 times better? There's no reason. And if you're looking for like a medium range weapon that can one-shot, you're better off just playing a lot of the other weapons in the game that can have that same range. Put out more paint and have a better kit and actually can do better than having to play a charger at that range. I think out of all the dualies in the game right now, I think the best ones are the dualie squelchers. The only dualies you're actually seeing in your higher tier games, putting them A+ tier. I think they have a really good kit as well. The Wave Breaker and the Splat Bomb are great for this weapon. It really is. They're the only dualies being played right now too. Like, I don't even see any other ones being played. Like, ever since I've got to like S tier and above. Gluga dualies are awful. There is no reason to play these weapons. It's really weird too. Like, I love this game, but like for somebody as a player, like 3 of my favorite weapons are all in. It's just garbage. It sucks. It really hurts as a player having to do this. 3 of my favorite weapons in F tier. The problem with the Gluga dualies is that their fire rate is too slow. Their fire rate is too slow, and they just take a shit ton of ink. You are constantly almost out of ink. Unless you have like a gear build with a bunch of like main saver or like ink recovery, which is almost a requirement with these. Unlike a lot of the other dualies in the game, you can kind of run whatever you want. That's what's really holding these back. If they were to buff these, I think they need to buff the Gluga Dualies for December patch and this next huge bonus, or this next balance patch. They need to slightly increase the fire rate on the Gluga Dualies and reduce the ink efficiency, or increase the ink efficiency so it doesn't take as much ink to use them. Or even like when dodge rolling. That'd be a huge buff for this weapon, and it's just really holding them back. The splash wall is okay. I don't really care for the splash wall personally as me playing them, but like Booyah Bomb is one of the best ults in the game, and it has Booyah Bomb now finally on this weapon, and it's still not even being played, and it's still one of the worst weapons in the game out of the dually class especially. Really sad. If you're good with them, like you can maybe make them work, but they're just so difficult to play right now, and there's just no reason to play them over any of the other dualies, let alone any of the other weapons, because it just takes forever to kill somebody, and then you just have to run like way too much ink saver to actually make them work, because otherwise if you don't run anything, you just play like a random build or whatever you want to build, you're just going to be constantly out of ink the entire time. Either that or you're not going to have enough ink to actually take advantage of your splash wall either, which is another huge problem with how much ink that takes. So you can throw it on a splash wall, but you with how much ink you have afterwards, after throwing it out, you aren't going to be able to even roll around and play around your splash wall for very long, depending on your build. So that's another problem that's still really holding it back. Splat Dualies, I'm going to put B tier. And I think they were better in Splatoon 2 when they had Tena missiles. I really do. I think Crab's okay, but I think Tena missiles were 10 times better on this weapon. You're not seeing them play it at all that much, but they aren't really bad. But like you're just not seeing them played at all. Dapple Dualies, man, if these things fall, I thought it was going to be one of the best weapons in the game. I really do. I think the real problem with this weapon is that it lacks a sub. It really wants a sub that is not beacon. I think that's the one thing that's really holding this weapon back. Tacticooler is great with the Dapples. It really is. I think that's one of the best specials they could have gave this thing. But having the beacon on this weapon when you want to have a bomb or something you can throw just to give like area of denial or like use in fights when you're trying to fight somebody one-on-one and pretty much not having a sub for the entire game, it's just really bad for this weapon. That's why it's really held back. I think once the Dapples actually get a decent sub, and maybe they have some other different type of special, I don't know what else they could really give it for this next, when they release new weapons next in December, maybe it'll be better, but right now the Dapple Dualies, they're just not really that good. Dark Tetra Dualies A tier. I think out of all the other like dualies in the game, I think the only other ones that are actually somewhat decent are the Dark Tetras. The major problem with the Dark Tetras though is they just lack ink. They don't ink for shit, and it's really difficult to actually put ink down with them because they don't really paint very well. Their fire rate's kind of slow unless you're dodge rolling, and then if you're not dodge rolling, they don't really put out that much ink. Apart from that, though, I've seen them work. Like, you see them once in a while, you can maybe make them work, but you have to be really good at them. And the problem with these is that there's no reason to play them over the dually squelchers again. Like, keep in mind, too, like, these two top tiers is, like, the stuff you're going to be seeing in the majority of your games. That's what the AS tier and, like, the A+ tier is. Like, these are the weapons you're going to be seeing in, like, 90% of your games in your higher tiers, like S tier and above. Carbon Roller, garbage. Short-range roller that has no mobility and cannot one-shot anybody. It's the worst it's ever been. It does not have Burst Bomb. It has Zipcaster and I think Auto Bomb, which don't do anything for the weapon. It is the worst roller in the game by far. Needs some major buffs, or just needs an entirely new kit. I think that's what it really needs. Dynamo, C tier. You're just not seeing it played at all. I think that the real problem with Dynamo is there's just no reason to play it over a lot of other stuff. Especially as like a backline support type weapon, there's just so much other options right now that why would you even bother playing this when you can pick like an anchor weapon or even like any other support weapon that can just do way better. The Flings roller got nerfed. It got the plus 10 extra special charge to get an alt. It's still being played almost every game. If you see a roller right now, the best one in the game is the Flingza, just because it has missiles and it's the most consistent missile weapon in the game. With 10 missiles. That's the real reason why it's being played. Splat rollers. I want to put it higher, I really do, but I think it kind of lacks on a lot of these maps. There's a lot less flank routes on these maps, and it's a lot more difficult to actually play it, at least it seems. Believe me, I've tried to play this thing on a lot of maps, and it's really difficult to play for some reason. I think once it gets rid of Big Bubble or two, I think it'll be a little bit little bit better. It's another aggressive weapon similar to Blaster. For some reason that has Big Bubbler, and it doesn't really do anything with Big Bubbler. Like the same thing as the Blaster. It wants an aggressive special, and that's what it really wants. But like it has Big Bubbler, and all it really does is just throw it down when it's kind of in danger, or like to hold down an area a little bit longer. It doesn't really make much use out of it apart from that. I think if it has a better special, it'd be a little bit better. It still has Curling Bomb. Like Curling Bomb's what it wants, but like apart from that, I think it's lacking a special, and it's just kind of difficult to play right now. If you can make it work, like you can still play it, you can still destroy teams. It's one of those weapons that can kind of pub stomp your lower to mid tier ranks as well, because people don't really know how to play against it. And Ninja Squid is really good right now as well. So if you guys like Ninja Squid, which is like 90% of people are running, almost everybody's running Ninja Squid with how good it is, which hopefully will be getting nerfed as well, but it's a weapon that benefits from Ninja Squid, so that makes it a little bit better, I guess. Splatana Wiper, garbage. Way too high of a time to kill. You gotta land 3 shots on somebody to actually kill them, and usually by that time you're usually dead, or you just get out-traded by everybody. And if you want to try to one-shot somebody, you gotta be right in their face, and it still has a super high chance to kill. If you miss your one-shot as well, you usually get turned on and you get killed in return, so garbage weapon. Needs some major buffs, or just an entirely different kit. It plus has the Ultra Stamp. The Ultra Stamp got a bunch of bug fixes, but it's still not good at all, really. Splatana Stamper C tier, I don't see the thing being played at all, and I think it's one of those weapons that, unless you're like a god tier player with it, you're not going to make it work. It's just so difficult to play, and the skill cap for this weapon is mainly usually luck reliant, depending on the enemy team, because you're really easy to shut down, and if a team just groups up or just has like 1 or 2 people that just focus you the entire time, you just don't do anything with the weapon at all. Undercover Brella, worst Brella in the game. Do not play it at all. If you want to play this weapon, you're throwing your matches. Splat Brella, C tier. You're never going to be playing this thing really at all. Tent Brella, maybe B tier. I think out of all the Brellas in the game, it's probably the best one, but not by much. It's still incredibly buggy. Arrow Spray in Ranked. If this was a Turf War tier list, I'd probably put it way higher, but in Ranked, it's C tier. It's not good at all. You can play it, and you can maybe get away with it, but like you're just better off playing anything else. Splattershot Pro, B tier. The main problem with this weapon is it needs a slightly faster fire rate, and it needs to be more efficient on ink. Pretty much the same thing as the Galuga Dualies. It needs to be more efficient on ink because it's just so ink hungry for a weapon, and it needs a slightly faster fire rate. I think it's a little bit lacking in the fire rate. And the problem with this, at least the vanilla, like this variant of the splatter shot, is it's lacking an actual sub. Angle shooter is pretty much useless. So you're pretty much playing a weapon for a special only, which is Crab Tank, and you have a pretty much useless sub for half the time that barely does anything, and it's more like of a situational sub at all. Like it's nothing you really use most of the time anyways, and that's what's really holding the weapon back. Junior, A+ tier. One of the best supports in the game. The best Big Bubbler type weapon in the game that actually can use Big Bubbler, and it can actually support the team with how much ink it puts out. You're seeing this in a lot of your games, and it's doing incredibly well right now. It's actually really annoying to play against. Squeezer. Oh, Squeezer in A tier. It's not bad. It's not bad, but like you'll see it once in a while being played, but you don't see it in every single game. 52 Gal is going up to S tier. Crazy good. Nothing with it's really changed since last patch. It's still crazy good. The 0.96 B tier. I think it just needs buffs. I don't think they're ever going to buff this weapon, because if they buff the fire rate on the weapon, which is what it really needs, it'll become broken. So that's the real problem. Jet Squelcher, C tier. Not that good. There's just no reason to play this weapon over all the other weapons that do the same job as it does. Splattershot, S tier. Crazy good. Sploosh-O-Matic, S tier. One of the best inking weapons in the game, and the best weapon in the game to farm Crab Tank. Incredibly difficult to lock down to with how easily it inks, and it has Burst Bomb. It can easily combo and kill people really fast. If you're a good sploosh, like a splatter or a splash player, you can easily carry games. It's really good right now. NTAP 85, A tier. You see it once in a while, just as like a more of a support, mainly just to try to farm up Tacticooler. I thought it was going to be a lot better at the start of the game. This is one of the weapons I think had like 8+ tier, like S tier last time for the first tier list. It's not as good as it was. I don't think I'm at the point where now I don't think it really needs to be nerfed. But I think just because there's a lot of other weapons that do its job better, to the point where I don't think it really needs to be played right now, at least. Sploosh, throw pick. If you pick Sploosh in your ranked games, especially in your higher tiers, you're just throwing. There's no way you're going to rank up. You're just going to be hard stuck. H3, F tier, garbage. This weapon, the problem with this weapon is it does not paint for shit. It paints really bad, and it just lacks. It's lacking something. I don't know what it really lacks, but it's just really bad right now. L3 is C. I'd probably put that in C tier. It's good for farming Crab Tank, but at the same time, it just gets overshadowed. The real problem with the L3 nozzle nose is it doesn't do anything different than the Splash-O-Matic. It has Crab Tank, but it paints worse than the Splash, and the Splash has a better sub than this thing does. So you got Curling Bomb, which doesn't really do anything for you, so that's where it kind of really lands. Blob is B tier. Can be kind of like a support weapon type hybrid or like mid-range type weapon. The problem with it though is it's pretty ink heavy and requires a lot of ink. It's pretty bad on ink, and it's pretty easy to play around. It really is, especially in your higher tier games. Maybe in your lower to like mid tiers, it'll be a lot better, but like in your higher tier games, there's no reason to really play it over a lot of other stuff. Slosher. What was Slosher at A+ tier? I think out of all the buckets right now, I think the Slosher is probably the second best one. Let's go get rid of the sloshing machine, put that up to S tier. I think that's about the second best one right now. I think if you're looking for a slosher right now and you're looking to play slosher, you either pick the slosher itself or the sloshing machine. Either one of those, incredibly good. Try slosher, I'll probably put A tier. Not bad by any means, and it's one of the only weapons in the game, apart from the ballpoint, that actually has the inkjet. So if you want a weapon that has inkjet, I think the Try Slosher is probably the best one, alongside the ballpoint, which I'll probably put the ballpoint in A tier as well. It's a pretty solid weapon. You're not going to be seeing it in like every single game, but it's a really solid weapon, especially in your higher tier games, if you know what you're doing and you know how to play the weapon. It has a really solid kit, and I think it's doing really well right now. Nautilus, A tier. I think if this thing had a little bit better of a kit, it would be a little bit better. I think it's the one thing that's kind of holding it back, is it has a kit that doesn't really enable the weapon for what it really wants to do. Point sensor's fine, but like apart from that, it just marks people. It doesn't really do much else. It wants a better sub, and it wants a little bit better of a special. And that's the real problem with it right now. I think if it gets a different kit, and depending on how the new kit is for like the custom Nautilus or whatever the other variant is, it might be a little bit better. Hydra Splatling, I think A tiers. Actually, I think out of all the Splatlings in the game, it probably is the best one. I'll probably put it S+ or A+ tier. I don't think I don't think the other ones are good at all. I really don't. Like I'll put the heavy and I'll put the mini at like B tier, because they aren't good at all. You don't see them being played at all. It's really difficult to play Splatlings right now. It really is. I think out of all like the backline and like anchor type weapons, the Splatlings are the ones that are really struggling. The one that's doing okay is the Hydra. That's mainly because its kit is really good. Booyah Bomb's great and Auto Bomb's really good. But if you just poke it out the entire time and are constantly pressuring it, like it's not going to do anything. It's one of those weapons that kind of depends on what team you're going against. It's still, like, the reason why I have an A+ tier is because if you do want a Splatling, it's the best one in the game. Just like kit-wise and with how much it does and how much damage it does. Like, that's the real problem with this. It just really lacks, I don't know, you can pretty much pressure it, and with how long it takes to charge, and if you're constantly having to reset a charge, you can get a full charge. It doesn't really do anything the entire game, so that's one thing you have to be careful for. Then we got the tri-string bow. I don't think this thing's really that good. Like, I'm going to put it like B tier. I think the one thing it really needs is it needs a faster charge rate. Like, the charge rate takes way too long to charge, and you just get out-traded by a lot of the other backline weapons, especially if you're trying to 1v1 them. It takes way too long to charge, and you just get dove way too easily. Especially if people that just run at you. You can't do shit if people just keep running at you the entire game. It has an okay kit, but like I think just the main weapon itself needs a slight buff to make it charge a little bit faster. I think if they give a slight buff, I think it could be a lot better. And depending on what what other kit they give it, what the next variant of the weapon we're supposed to be getting in about a month. It might be better. And then I know I'm lacking the Reflux 450. Before anybody says there's no Reflux here, I'm going to talk about the Reflux 450 right now. I'd put the Reflux 450 at A tier. The only reason this weapon is being played in any type of game is just to spam missiles. You run like a full gear build of all charge up, or like a half a gear build of like special charge up and like special saver, and all you do is just paint the map and you spam as many missiles as possible. And if your team needs help, you kind of pay attention to what your team is doing. If they're trying to 1v1 somebody, you go in and try to assist them in winning 1v1s. And that's the one thing the weapon really does. Apart from that, if this weapon did not have 10 missiles, it'd probably be one of the worst weapons in the game, which is really sad. I'd put it at A tier just for that reason. And even then, if you want a 10 missile weapon, I think the better one is even still the Flings, because it just does a lot more for the team. And you're just better off picking it as a team player, more so than like a support weapon. But the reason why I'm putting it A tier is just because of how well it inks still, and how spammable the missiles can be, especially with a certain build, which is the most common thing right now, and the reason why you do see it played once in a while. So apart from that, that is all we have, y'all. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like I said, it's going to be mainly like an S tier and above type list. So if you're like in your mid to lower tier games, like you can kind of play whatever you want. I think the game's in a really solid spot, at least for those tiers. You can kind of get away with it all, pretty much the majority of the weapons. Like apart from some of the ones in like F tier, like I'd play Clash in like your mid to lower tier ranks, but like there's some of these I wouldn't even bother playing, like the Sploosh or the Undercover Umbrella or like the Carbon Roll. Like those are throw picks. There's a few throw picks down here that are, even in the lower tiers of ranked, are just really bad. But like apart from that, like the most of the weapons right now are playable, which is I think a really good thing. Even in like your middle tier games, I think the higher tier of games, it's really boring because you're seeing all these S tier picks and all these A plus tier picks, with a few of the A tier ones thrown in once in a while in the majority of your games, and that's what it just makes it really boring, because you're playing against how many weapons we have here? 5, 10, 15 weapons, maybe arguably around about 20 weapons, arguably about a dozen and a half weapons that are being played almost in every single game in your higher tiers once you get past S tier and above. I don't know. I feel like the weapon meta right now is just incredibly boring. It really is. I wish they'd start nerfing. Hopefully they start nerfing and they nerf the shit out of a lot of these really incredibly good weapons. And they start buffing a lot of the worst ones, like the ones that are fun to play but just are really bad. I think that's what they really need to do. I feel like the game just lacks weapons right now. Like it'll change in the future. We're supposed to be getting different variants of weapons, but the game just really overall lacks weapons right now. And that's kind of what makes ranks boring. Like I can't play ranked more than like 2 hours at a time, because either I just get frustrated with how bad the matchmaking is, or just how bad I'm just sick of playing against multiple sloshing machines on a team, or like Flings a roller, E leader. I'm sick of getting sniped by E leader, or like playing against Explosher or 52 or Splatter Shot, like those weapons, or having to play against a junior that just sits and spams bombs from spawn the entire game, like that type of stuff. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I do think that will actually change in the future. Like I said, we just need more weapons. That's the main thing. We're going to be getting more weapons here this next patch in December. So once we get more weapons, I think we're going to have a lot more diverse weapon pool. You'll see a lot of more weapons being up in the higher tiers, even like your mid tiers of ranked. So that'll be a good thing. You'll see a lot more variety, which is always good for the game. And at least for something for me, makes the game a lot more fun. So having the ability to play more cool weapons and having the ability to play them, and even having them being good, and seeing different weapons being played and playing against them as well is also fun. So if you guys like these types of videos, leave a like, subscribe, share the video, and I'm gonna get out of here. Like I said, if this video does well, I will do another tier list, an updated one for the December patch, when we get all the new weapons, all the crazy weapon balance and all that type of stuff. So if you guys want that, show some support to the video. I'm gonna get out of here. Peace out, everybody.